Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Noelle, and today we are going to talk about not having a smartwatch and trying to exercise by feel. Now let me explain to you the circumstances why I don't have my Garmin this week. I actually did have a Garmin Forerunner 945 and it was working pretty well for me. And I was able to use it during my first swim because the country's entered a state of general community quarantine. So we were finally allowed to use our condo pool. It's not technically a public pool, which is why we were able to open it because it's only limited to us residents. But in any case, I was able to use it. I had a really good time swimming, even though it was a pretty slow swim. And then when I went to upload the data to Garmin Connect, well, the watch kind of directed me to update certain things, and so I did. And unfortunately, as is the case with maybe a small percentage of all kinds of devices, from smartphones to tablets to, yes, smartwatches and sports watches, the update kind of broke the watch. And I did do all of the things that you can do to, like, maybe self-diagnose the watch and try to fix it, which was, first was a soft reset and then a hard reset which deleted my data from the watch. Thankfully, I had synced everything before attempting to do those things. But in any case, the watch would work for a certain time and then it would enter this reboot loop. And then it just wouldn't start up, or it was starting up and just couldn't continue in booting up. And so yeah, I was left with a bricked watch. Thankfully, the watch was under warranty, and I'd gotten it from Garmin Philippines, so no questions asked when I told them what had happened, and I'd already done all of the things that you need to see if you can get the watch back up working. Well, they said, okay, we'll send you a new unit next week. And so this week, no watch. Next week, I'll have a watch. This is the first time since 2009 that I've actually not had a sports watch to track my activity with. Yeah, that's really strange, right? I started running in 2009, like joining races, but my first race, I didn't record it with a Garmin. I only got my first Garmin in November of 2009, and then so on and so forth. I've never gone without a sports watch since then. So this feels really, really alien to me, not being able to track my activity, not being able to say, oh well, I did this workout, I burned this many calories, I covered this much mileage, with a lot of certainty. And the funny thing is that I've really grown to be so reliant on having the sports watch. So this week kind of left me out at sea a little bit. Thankfully, I'm not really training hard for anything, like no races whatsoever. So yeah, that hasn't really affected anything on any of my plans. And also this week I've kind of been a little under the weather because on the job side of things I've been working really hard and haven't really been able to get as much sleep as I need to kind of keep my immune system up. And so yeah, I haven't been feeling great, so it was good to have a bit of a break this week. But yeah, I think you need to address, or I think I need to address, why I've grown to become so dependent on, admittedly, you know, sports watches are a great tool, but why am I so dependent on it? I mean, you have generations of Olympic athletes and other really great sports stars who trained without a GPS watch. They trained by timer, they trained by running distances that they already knew, known distances like 400 meters on the track, or you know, they knew that it could take them approximately an hour to run this certain trail, that sort of thing, and that never stopped them. So why did it stop me? And yeah, I think that's a thing that happens to a lot of age group athletes, is that we become overly dependent on the gadgets that we buy for ourselves. They're gadgets that are tools, but the thing is that sometimes we allow these gadgets to kind of define who we are as athletes. and when you lose that sort of hard numbers, you lose that sort of thing that tells you, oh, you ran this pace, then you're kind of, like I said, I was out at sea. I just really didn't know what to do with myself. And then, you know, kind of in the middle of this week, after I'd spent a few days just kind of like moping because I didn't have a watch, I just kind of snapped out of it and realized that I could still exercise even without a watch. So it really had to do with what kind of exercise could I do without the watch. I also realized that I'd never actually swum without a Garmin telling me my pace, trying to keep track of the mileage that I was doing in the pool. And yeah, so I kind of thought now was not a good time to jump back in the pool and do laps, because it would feel a little pointless and unstructured. So instead, this week I did a few yoga sessions, one Zwift riding session, because I still had cadence, speed, and heart rate sensors on which to base my performance record. And then I did 2 runs just here in the condo. I kind of know the distance. I didn't have heart rate data, which I usually use my watch for. I didn't have pace data, but I cheated a little and I used my smartphone. I used some apps on the smartphone to try to track just the mileage and the amount of time I was out there. So I was still able to exercise, so that tells you something. There are people sometimes, like I've heard horror stories of athletes who they get up, they go out to their regular riding grounds, and then they realize that their watch is not charged. So they kind of like, they give up and they go home instead of actually doing the workout. And I did not want that to be me. And I just thought back to that first year when I started running in races, and I didn't really have a GPS watch. All I had was a watch with a timer that told me how long it was between the time I started and the time that I crossed the finish line. I read this article a few years ago on training by feel, and actually, you know, trusting your body and trying to really get in touch with it so that you could determine the effort that you were doing. You could determine you could feel how long you were out there, that sort of thing. I'm gonna leave it in the comments box. I can I'll leave a link down there so that you can go and read the article for yourself. But in any case, I usually have a good feel for the kind of pace I'm running, the kind of exertion I'm doing. Well, I thought I did. And then I started having all of this heart rate data presented to me, and apparently my heart rate is quite high for paces that I thought that were easy. And so I've been running a little bit slower, trying to keep my heart rate down. And that's kind of taken a huge blow to my ego, because I'm not running the paces that I used to. And then, not having heart rate data this week, I thought, well, I might as well just run based on, you know, how I'm feeling, the exertion that I'm feeling. And I ran faster than I have in weeks, and I didn't even feel tired doing these runs. So yeah, that's something that I have to keep feeling out and sussing out as an athlete. Yeah, running felt easier when I couldn't even see my heart rate. So it tells you something about pushing limits and seeing sometimes limits can be set on you by the equipment. I had this friend who during a race his watch had a quick release, so he was swimming with it and somebody kicked him and the watch just unclipped and fell into the ocean. But what? It was an Olympic distance, and it was like, what's he gonna do? Stop his race? So yeah, he just kept going by feel. The distances were set anyway, so he didn't really have to keep checking to see if he was close to completing one discipline and then moving on to the next discipline. He just went swim, he went bike, and then he went run. And you know what? He came up with a huge PR for that race. And so these devices are tools so that you can record things, but what does matter to you is the outcome in a race, or the outcome in your fitness. So yeah, not having a watch doesn't mean that I can't exercise. Not having a watch doesn't mean that I'm not getting better at anything just because I'm not recording anything. Of course, having a watch means that I can stay accountable to the goals that I've set for myself. But you know, the saying is the proof is in the pudding. So you just put all the ingredients together, mix them together, have the pudding set, and then you taste the pudding. So what are the ingredients? All you need to do is you know how to measure them roughly. You mix them together and you bake a pudding. I guess you do, and then you serve it and you eat it. You don't always have to like be in the oven with the pudding or be in the fridge with the pudding and monitoring it, whether it changes from liquid into that solid gel, that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, if your goal is to keep beating yourself in training and keep recording these new what's this segment, if you want to keep getting all the King of the Mountains, Queen of the Mountains on the segments and all that, well then yeah, of course not having your gadget with you is going to be detrimental to achieving that goal. But if your goal is really just to become fit, to mark some kind of improvement, then you can find improvement in other metrics other than using a watch. You can find that metric in how you're feeling, in how you perform on race day. I guess my learning for this week is that movement is good and not everything needs tracking. Sometimes the metrics you have, it's just vanity and it's just for bragging to people on Strava. Hey, I did this much mileage this week. Hey, you know what, I set a new FTP. Really, it's all movement is good, and if your goal is to gain fitness or to remain fit during this period when there are no races, well, you don't really need the watch right now. Speaking of races, I don't know if you've already caught it across your news feeds on social media, but yeah, Ironman has come out with this new video showcasing the things that they're going to do to keep their participants safe during a race, or even before and after a race, like during race weekend. And I guess that's true for a lot of the industries that are coming back during this time. Like for instance, the restaurants are going to come up with their own regulations, like lesser occupancy, spacing the chairs and tables out to give themselves a chance at social distancing. And then the airlines have they've come out with a lot of material on how they're going to make flying with them safe in the time of COVID-19. Okay, but here's the thing. This is security theater. This is something that you do, or that they show that they're doing, to make you feel safe. But are you really safe? The thing is, during this time, there really is no 0% risk that you're going to be exposed to the virus that causes COVID-19. And that's because the virus is all over the world. That's why it's called a pandemic. All you really can do is minimize your risks, but then there's always going to be a risk. And so whether or not you sign up for a race, go to a restaurant, fly somewhere, really depends on your appetite for risk. And I think for triathletes, a lot of us are already used to risking our health for the sport, so why not add just one more thing to it? Seriously, I really hope that these measures that they're gonna put into place will keep athletes safe and healthy, and I hope that no sick athletes actually come to race these races, because why would you even show up to a race if you're sick? But I have seen many athletes do exactly that. For me as an athlete, and I already said this in an article that was published in Abante last week, I'm not in any hurry to get back into racing anyway. I've lost a lot of fitness during this time, but that's okay. I treat it like a long off season. It's probably because I've already done everything I really wanted to do in the sport. I'm just doing it for fun, but also because I know that, life is long and the sport is always going to be there, whether or not you're off from it 1 year and then you come back the next year. Obviously, if you're off for an entire year or two, then when you come back the following year, it's going to be at shorter distances, maybe a slower pace, that sort of thing. But you can always build back up into what you used to do, or explore other things like trying to get faster at the shorter distances and whatnot. So yeah, I know that the sport is always going to be there. I can race in the future, and hopefully it's a future with either a vaccine or the virus is just gone. But yeah, for this year, it's a no for me. And it's really up to you if you feel safe enough to go back to racing. I know that a lot of the long distance races were marketed for destination racing, like a racecation, and obviously with travel restrictions, that's going to be a much harder sell, because you're adding not just the risk of being together with a lot of different people during the race, but you're also adding the risk of traveling somewhere, and either you're the one who's bringing the virus there, or you're the one who's going to catch the virus there and bring it back home. Really up to you guys if you feel safe during this time, but really just a reminder, the virus is still out there. So I hope that we can all keep safe and healthy during this time. If you're exercising outdoors, I've seen a lot of you travel outside of Metro Manila to our favorite stomping grounds. And obviously there are no checkpoints there to stop you, but please just make sure that when you travel out there, you're healthy, you're not really harboring any viruses inside, so that you don't spread the virus outside of Metro Manila. And also that you are doing the things that you need to do so that you protect yourself and others. So you're wearing your personal protective equipment, you're doing social distancing. Really, you know what? It's just about being an adult and taking responsibility for your actions. Alright guys, that's it for this week. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any comments, please leave it in the comments box below. You know my social media, but you can still find the links to it down there as well. And yeah, let me know what you think about this week's topic. And I'll see you again next time. Bye!